Welcome back to another episode of ROC Boys Football. Today is day 5 of our NFL mock draft series. We're doing the New York Giants. Doubling up today because I got a little behind watching some interior offensive line film Thursday. So you guys got 2 mock drafts coming your way, and we're getting going with the New York Giants. Before we get into the video, if you guys like the content, like, subscribe to the channel. Let us know your thoughts and opinions down below. We don't always agree on who to draft, and that's the beauty of the NFL draft season. So let me know what you guys are thinking. There's obviously a lot of ways for the New York Giants to approach this with 2 top 10 picks. Let's get into this draft. Kyle Hamilton going first overall with even the slow 40. That's interesting. Number 5, I think they got to go tackle. I think there's a lock to be one of these tackles available. Charles Cross, Evan Neal. So I actually have Charles Cross graded higher just because he's a better pass protector. But I like what I saw from Angie Thomas there at the left tackle. He seems to be coming along and going to be a solid left tackle. For right tackle, I think Evan Neal is going to be the pick. I think Evan Neal provides a little bit more in the run game. And the Panthers are probably very happy because they're able to get Charles Cross. If I'm the Giants, I really am hoping a Kayvon Thibodeau ends up falling, especially if there's a little run on the tackles. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like he's going to be falling here. We're going to go up and get Jermaine Johnson. He's a guy that I just think can do it all. He had arguably the best film that we saw. Trayvon Walker also could be in the talks. I know a lot of people like Trayvon Walker. I personally just liked what I saw out of Jermaine Johnson more at Florida State in terms of getting after the passer. He was dominant. He's very dominant in the run game. He's an all-around complete prospect who just provides a little bit more in the pass rush than Trayvon Walker, which is interesting because Jermaine Johnson really transferred from Georgia because he couldn't get on the field over guys like Trayvon Walker. Now, what you saw in the film is just Jermaine Johnson seemed to be the better player. Does Trayvon Walker maybe have the higher floor just because of how strong and how fast he is? Quite possibly. Jermaine Johnson is my pick here. New York Giants picking at 36. This is a good area to mention that I think the Giants could be in the market to trade Saquon. Taking a look at just the salary, like he's got 1 more year and then he's going to have to get paid a lot. I think a team like the Buffalo Bills, who are trying to kind of get over the hump for this year and win a Super Bowl with the team they have, could be very interested in landing Saquon Barkley and give up maybe a day 2 pick. And I'm not even saying the Bills will sign him to another contract after his rookie contract is up. It just seems like they're willing to give some capital up for that 1 year of going out and winning a Super Bowl. We're not going to do this in that mock, but I think it's worth the conversation just because I think Saquon's a good player, but if you can get that much capital, like the Giants aren't going to go pay him that much to come back, I don't think. So it's just you're trading him away for 1 more year and getting some draft capital. 36. Interior offensive line. I think John Feliciano will be decent at center. I know they just got him from the Buffalo Bills. He was solid for Buffalo. He's not a game breaker by any means, but I think he's a solid plug and play interior offensive lineman. You know who is not just solid and who just wraps his arms around the football game is Jalen Petry. I mean, in terms of having an impact on the football game, Jalen Petry is one of the more impactful players you see on defense. He's been a very popular pick for me in that early second round, as we're doing some of those early pick draft teams. He's just a guy that he can do it all. I think he offers a little bit more value in coverage than a guy like Jamal Adams, but has a very similar impact when it comes to being around the line of scrimmage, getting in the backfield, having sacks, tackles for loss, getting his hands on footballs. Plays like a hybrid safety cornerback. I think he'll play more of like a nickel role in the NFL, but he makes an impact on the football game, flies around the field. Again, Jamal Adams vibes in a big way. On the clock at 67. I think we talk about this. I think this is a sweet spot for that linebacker. Taking a look at linebacker. A lot of guys I like. I like Channing Tindall. I like Channing Tindall more than I like Troy Anderson. I like him more than Brian Asamoah. And that's not even to say that I don't like some of those other linebacking prospects. What I see in Channing Tindall is just elite speed. The big knock on him is he only played like 600 snaps at Georgia in his 4 years there, playing behind guys like Quay Walker, Nakobe Dean. and then Monte Rice before. Like that linebacking unit was very loaded. And he was a guy that started as a backup to Quay Walker and then just found his way to pretty much taking over that starting role. He flies around the football field. He shoots gaps really well. He blitzes really well. Again, you worry about those Georgia linebackers and how are they going to do when they don't have a dominant defensive line in front of them. That's a problem. Brian Asamoah is another good guy to look at. He's super long, 33-inch arms, extremely good running with tight ends up the seam, dropping back in coverage. I just worry about the size. I think he's a little undersized. He struggles to take on blocks. He's much more of a guy that's going to try to beat a block to the spot as opposed to take it on. I think in the NFL, sometimes you just got to be able to take on blocks and make the play. Channing Tindall, I think, has more of the tools to do that. I think it's proven at the SEC level. We're going to go get Channing Tindall. I really don't think you can go wrong with any of these Georgia linebackers. Something was in the water down in Athens this year because it was just phenomenal play out of everybody. All right, 81. John Mechie, man. I looking at this New York Giants wide receiving room, I think it just lacks consistency. Kenny Galladay is hurt a lot. Sterling Shepard hurt a lot. Kadarius Toney hurt, but also he's just more of a backyard football player kind of guy. Like he's an elite athlete. With the ball in his hands, he's extremely exciting. You saw flashes of that in his rookie year. You get a guy like John Mechie, he's just more extremely solid. Obviously, he's coming off an injury as well, but he doesn't have a pass of injuries. And he's a guy that I'm going to be able to run that full route tree. I'm going to be able to get open on every route that you ask me to run. And he's going to be just a reliable guy for Daniel Jones to go find. And again, this is the year that you're trying to find out, is Daniel Jones the guy to lead our team? Or do we need to go and draft another guy or get another guy in free agency? I think John Mechie is going to just help you figure that out quickly, and so you can get a move on with this Brian Daboll era. I think the worst thing the Giants did right now, the past couple of years, is they didn't fully commit to Daniel Jones. Daniel Jones has flashed being able to make it happen at the NFL level, but he hasn't had consistent talent. He hasn't had a consistent offensive line to work from, and so the Giants don't really know if he can do it or not. And so you're kind of in this QB purgatory where you're not sure if he's the guy to make it happen. Or is he the guy that we want? You just don't know. I think this year you kind of got to put those doubts to rest and see if he's the guy that's going to be leading your team for the next 10 years. Pick 112. I know you guys need interior offensive line. You got John Feliciano, but it's still just some question marks here. If you want a solid prospect, Zach Tom's that guy. He's listed as a tackle, but he played his first 2 years at center. I think he could play guard too. He's extremely smart. He called out the protections for Wake Forest, a 5-year guy, captain of the team, a high character guy, and he's a blue chip. 2-time first team All ACC guy. Doesn't have crazy physical tools, but he's just, again, he is a solid football player that I think if you get him and plug him in, he's going to be really good for you. Yeah, I think we're going to go take him. Zach Tom from Wake Forest, man. He's been one of my favorite round 4 picks. He tested well too. He's not a minus athlete. He's a plus athlete. He just doesn't have the super high ceiling. The frame's a little bit small. But I love his game. I think he's just rock solid. And he gives you that versatility. Cam Jergens is another guy that I want to mention real quick. He just went to Kansas City, which is interesting because they just got Creed Humphrey. I think I liked Cam Jergens the first couple of times I watched him. I watched him a little last night, and he just, when he goes up against a little bit more powerful guys, he just seems a little underwhelmed athletically, smaller. He's like, they call him the poor man's Tyler Linderbaum, but Tyler Linderbaum's much more physical. He's much better at using his leverage and moving guys. Cam Jergens just kind of gets dominated a little bit physically. He's a great athlete in terms of reach blocks, stretch zone plays, pulling. He can get out and make the blocks that you need, and that's some special athleticism you see. But when he goes up again, when I watched the film against Perrion Winfrey, Perrion Winfrey had a day against him. He just was making Cam Jergens look a little bit foolish on the interior. And so I definitely have some question marks about how he's going to translate to the next level. Picking at 147, I'm going to take a look at this depth chart, kind of try to see if we can fill in some holes. One pay like Leonard Williams, they paid him so much money. I have some serious questions about like is he worth all that money? It's one of the worst contracts in my opinion in the NFL right now. Another thing you could look at is if you do trade Saquon Barkley, which I really think they should be thinking about. Could you take a look at some running backs here? You don't need a sick running back, but there's some really good running backs later in this draft that I like. I like Hassan Haskins. I like Jerrion Ely. They both kind of do different things. But again, in the NFL, you're kind of drafting, unless you're drafting like a top 20 running back who can do it all, you're kind of drafting uh, parts, right? You want a bruiser back like Hassan Haskins. Then you want more of a third down back who's better in space and pass pro, maybe like a Jerrion Ely. You don't need to find like an all encompassing back. I'd rather find a back and just run it by committee. When you look at NFL snap counts, there's only like 10 running backs who took over 60% of their team's snap counts. Those guys are rare to find. I don't get why people press so hard to find that complete running back. But when you can just kind of pair it up by committee, get a guy like Hassan Haskins who's great between the tackles and falling forward on short yardage plays, and then getting a guy who's a little bit better in space like Max Borgi or Jerry and Ely. Now, I don't know if we need to reach up and get a running back right now. So we're going to go back to the big board here. Take a look at a few more. We kind of solidified that offensive line with two really solid prospects in Evan Neal and Zach Tom. Pierre Strong, I like. He tested extremely well. I think Ozariki could really fit well in what they do up front. They play that base 3-4 defense. Um, Ozariki is more of a three tech who's really good at rushing the passer, kind of like what Leonard Williams tries to do. I really like Dexter Lawrence's game. I think he could very well be a guy you're taking a look at. Let's take a look at the safeties because Leon O'Neal is a guy that I really liked his film. He's more of a box safety. So you got Jalen Petry already. Yusuf Corker too, but he just the top end speed's a serious concern. Let's check cornerback real quick. Kel Wright, Smoke Monday, I like. Alontae Taylor's been getting some buzz too. Alontae Taylor's just a playmaker. He's really fast. All right, we gotta make our pick. The time is running down. We gotta make something happen here. Malcolm Rodriguez, if you want to double up on linebackers, taking a look at the depth at linebackers, it's not great. Uh, Malcolm Rodriguez is a guy that just tackles everything that he sees. Yeah, let's not overthink it. Let's go get Malcolm Rodriguez, a guy that is a former state champion wrestler, so he knows how to get people to the ground. He's really fast too. I think the biggest thing that he has, he's a little stiff in the hips in terms of being twitchy, being able to follow guys in pass coverage. Um, that's not all there, but he's fast, he's strong, he's a good tackler. He does check a lot of the boxes that you want for that linebacker group. I think here's a good range to maybe think about drafting a running back if you are in fact trading Hassan Haskins away or Saquon Barkley away. And I think we're going to go get Hassan Haskins, a guy that I think is one of the most underrated running backs because he's not flashy. He doesn't have any flash about him. As a Michigan fan, I saw him take a lot of carries last year, and all he does is just get the job done. If the offensive line blocks for 3, he's getting 5. If the offense blocks for 1, he's getting 3. I mean, he just takes every yard that there is. Great vision, but he's also extremely good at picking up those hidden yards, something that is very valuable for a running back. Kevin Austin's an interesting guy at wide receiver if you wanted to take a flyer. I'll take a look at cornerback. Kalen Barnes is just a freak. I mean, the testing that you see Kalen Barnes have is nuts. You could let's wait a second. Let's wait a second. I think also a position that we didn't really address that you could have addressed is that tight end position. Obviously, with Evan Ingram on his way out. Do you want to replace him with another phenomenal athlete? You could go Chigo Okonkwo from Maryland, a guy that just tested stupid. Very similar to like what Evan Ingram does. I know Brian Dabble really liked to use Dawson Knox once he kind of developed. I think you could look to take a tight end like that who's just a matchup nightmare, who's big, hard for safeties to cover just because of that big body, and hard for linebackers to run with. And that's kind of the recipe for drafting tight ends and finding a tight end that works is just being a matchup nightmare. Being like the classic what Gronk was at his prime was safeties just couldn't deal with the body. Just too big to cover, the physicality. Linebackers couldn't run with him in man coverage because he's just too fast. That's what you want in a tight end. I think Chigo has the ability to do that. He's a little bit of raw, just a really good athlete. But I think he'd be certainly worth maybe a selection there. Grading our draft, let's see how we did. Evan Neal with a B minus. I think that was a really good pick. I would be extremely happy with Evan Neal at playing right tackle for the New York Giants. I think he solidifies that offensive line. Jermaine Johnson, they give a D. We just don't agree. They have him as the 26th guy on the big board. I have him as a top 10 pick now. The more film I watched, how he's tested, how he looked at the Senior Bowl, it all points to him being one of the best edge guys in the class. If Kayvon Thibodeau is there, I'm taking Kayvon Thibodeau over Jermaine Johnson, but I'm not taking Trevon Walker over Jermaine Johnson. I think Jermaine Johnson is just a complete edge guy who's going to be good in the NFL. Jalen Petry, at 36, I like Jalen Petry. He's been a popular guy for me to take. And in terms of getting a guy that's going to impact football games, that's Jalen Petry. Channing Tindall, again, also a really solid linebacker prospect. You could go a couple ways with that linebacker slot in that late round 3. Channing Tindall, Troy Anderson, Brian Asamoah, Quay Walker's there. There's a lot of guys that I like. There's the linebacking class in that sweet spot of late day 2 is really deep. John Mechie at the end of day 2, I think he brings a little bit of just solid play to a wide receiver room that just lacks consistency. John Mechie's consistent. Zach Tom, C minus. They also just don't see Zach Tom like I do. I don't get why, because I bet he graded out really well at PFF. Maybe it's just because of the physicality that is capped a little bit with Zach Tom. But in terms of just being a solid offensive lineman, they are picking in round 4. I like that value. Malcolm Rodriguez, another guy that I like a lot. Hassan Haskins, and then Chigo is more of a project. But in round 6, you're kind of looking for guys who are going to be steals, could develop into really good football players. I think Chigo is certainly one of those guys. So overall C+ draft grade. They don't like the draft. I thought it was a pretty solid draft. I would have liked maybe Kayvon Thibodeau if he falls. I think New York Giants should be rooting for that. Maybe even go. Well, he wasn't there at 5 either. So that's a review on the New York Giants 2022 NFL mock draft. Again, let me know what you guys think in the comment section. We love talking ball in the comment section. And thank you guys for watching. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.